I spent days making an engagement cake worth $142.86 for my sister. At the party, she told me I wasn't invited and asked me to leave. So, I told everyone how she had lied for years, saying I tried to steal her ex. I'm a 26-year-old woman who has had her own bakery for a couple of years, and it's been going pretty well. My business is quite well known in the area where I live, and we've been thinking about expanding for a while. I am a professional with a great interest in this field. I graduated from culinary school and have enough experience to qualify as an excellent baker. Most people in my family usually come to me when they need cakes for events, and I am very happy to do it for them. I even offer them lower prices than most of my other customers. The only person who never had any business with me is my older sister, let's call her Rebecca. She is 4 years older than me, and we had a good relationship before, but things went bad between us a few years ago. About 6 years ago, she brought her boyfriend to Thanksgiving dinner. She had just started working at a new company, and that's where they met. They had only been dating for a few months, but I could tell she was quite serious about him, though I wasn't sure he was as interested in her as she was in him. After dinner, I went out to smoke and he followed me and started flirting with me. I felt uncomfortable, so I ignored him and went back inside. Later that night, I pulled Rebecca aside and told her how her boyfriend had behaved with me. She seemed upset but didn't say anything to me and assured me she would look into it later. I didn't think much of it because I thought I had done the right thing, and now it was up to her to decide what to do about it. But for some reason, after that incident, she began to distance herself from me. I tried to stay in touch with her and get her to hang out with me and such, but she just stopped one day and never explained her behavior. She even broke up with that guy a few months after the incident, but we still didn't fix things between us. I started to get very irritated by the way she constantly ignored me and acted like she didn't want to be around me or even talk to me. So, I stopped trying to stay in touch with her. After that, things were never the same between us. We were civil at family gatherings and such, but we weren't friends like before. It wasn't until a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years, that I found out what really happened and why she suddenly stopped talking to me. Our cousin, who both of us were very close to, let's call her Lana, 30 years old, told me that Rebecca had said certain things to her back then that she hadn't revealed to me because she didn't know if it was her place to say anything. But now, we had all grown up a lot and she thought she could finally tell me so I would have an explanation for why Rebecca stopped talking to me. Apparently, after that Thanksgiving dinner, when Rebecca asked her boyfriend about what I had told her, he denied it and said that, in fact, I had flirted with him and tried to be with him, not the other way around. Rebecca believed him instead of me because she felt quite insecure about me at the time and thought I was capable of betraying her. She didn't say it directly, but the way she talked about me back then made it very obvious that this was the truth, at least that's what Lana told me, and honestly, it made sense. Because for a long time, I had only been Rebecca's silly little sister, but after that, I became my own person, and that was a bit threatening to her, especially when her boyfriend was flirting with me. It hurt a lot that she believed some random guy over me just because she needed a reason to hate me and make me look like the bad guy for being honest with her and refusing to live in her shadow my whole life. Lana comforted me and told me it wasn't my fault, but it was still very upsetting at the time and I don't think I ever got over it. I always believed that Rebecca and I were close enough not to let such insignificant things come between us, but obviously, that was a one-sided expectation and she was just looking for any excuse to get rid of me. Then, she could badmouth me to other people without feeling guilty about it. By the time I found out all this, it had been too long and Rebecca and I had stopped talking much before this was revealed, so by then, it didn't seem worth confronting her and trying to fix things because it was too late and we had all moved on with our lives. Rebecca and I had not been on speaking terms for almost 3 years when I found out, and even Lana had distanced herself from her, but that was because both were busy with their own lives and not because of any fight, unlike us. Rebecca was busy because she was pregnant at the time, and that was another reason why I didn't think it was worth confronting her and bringing up all this past stuff because it would only lead to a lot of unnecessary stress that could easily be avoided by just sweeping everything under the rug and not talking about it. She had been dating her now fiancé David for a year by then, and I had started my business when her child was about 5 months old. I'm not saying it was necessary for every family member to come to me whenever they needed cakes for any event, but I thought it would be nice if they did, and despite all the unresolved conflicts between us, I still hoped that Rebecca would come to me when she needed a cake for her son's birthdays because we are family, and that was literally the least she could do for me. But I was disappointed once again. I expected people to support my new business, and most of the family members did. Even people who were just acquaintances and not even friends made sure to buy from me, but Rebecca never had any business with me, and it just felt really bad and insulting. The weird thing about all this was that I was always invited to her son's birthday parties, and there was always an extravagant cake from some other bakery. Yet, my mother always asked me to attend, even if I didn't feel comfortable there, because she thought it was important for us to at least present a united front among people as a family. So, I attended my nephew's birthday parties for the past 3 years and was always subjected to a bunch of questions from some nosy family members about the cake and had to address the fact that it wasn't actually mine and Rebecca had gotten it from somewhere else. They always enjoyed the opportunity to hear that and smirked with self-satisfaction at the drama. It was really sickening, and I was very tired of the same thing happening at every birthday party every year. So this year, I decided not to attend the event and stayed home because I didn't care about appearances as much anymore, at least not as much as when I was 23. My mother was obviously very upset about it, but my father didn't seem to care, and I don't think it made any difference to my sister either. She didn't seem worse at the party because I saw the photos online. But I guess it gave her the perfect excuse to stop acting like we had a civil relationship and really start avoiding and hating me altogether. After I didn't attend her son's birthday this year, she blocked me on all forms of social media, and honestly, that was fine with me because we weren't friends anyway, and she made it very clear that the only reason I was even invited to any of her family events was because our mother wanted us to at least be civil with each other and present a refined front rather than being openly cold to each other. That was almost 5 months ago, and we haven't had any contact since then. There were some weddings and events we had to attend in between, but unlike before, when we at least greeted each other whenever we met at these events, we didn't do that anymore. It was very obvious that we were no longer on speaking terms, and I didn't care because we weren't friends. She was the one who had a problem with me, so she could ignore me all she wanted. I didn't care anymore. I had lost all hope that we would ever have a good relationship. But then she finally unblocked me a couple of weeks ago and reached out to me personally. I thought she was finally going to address all the issues we had over the past years. I didn't even expect her to apologize, just acknowledge that there was something wrong with how we had been treating each other. But she didn't do any of that, and instead, she told me she had an order for me. I knew what it was about because I had heard from a couple of people that she was now engaged and that David finally proposed to her after 4 years of being together and that they were going to get married in a couple of months. So, I thought maybe she was reaching out to me to ask me to make a cake for her engagement party, and I was right. She didn't even say please or anything to make her message sound courteous, and it was really weird because no other customer would talk to me like that because it's just rude. I'm going to attach the message she sent me so you can know exactly what I'm talking about. I need a 5-tier cake for my engagement party this weekend. Let me know the price tonight. That was it, no thanks or pleases. But anyway, I asked her to elaborate on the type of cake she wanted and responded as I would to any other customer and chose to handle it professionally because, at the end of the day, this was business, and I wasn't going to let my personal relationship with her get in the way of that. She elaborated and explained the exact type of cake she wanted, and then I informed her that the price would be around $68.57 since the type of preparation she wanted was going to be quite elaborate and would take me a while to prepare everything. She said it was too much for a cake like that and needed me to lower my price. I told her this was the price I was quoting because we were family and I was giving her a discount, but otherwise, I would have probably charged a bit more for a cake like that. I also told her that I wasn't even charging for the delivery cost, so this was the lowest I could go, and I couldn't give her a lower price without incurring losses for myself. I was also accepting this order, but under normal circumstances, I wouldn't accept such a large order with only a week's notice because any cake with more than 2 tiers and that elaborate usually requires orders to be made 2 weeks before the event. So, I was already making many concessions for her and going beyond what I would normally do, so I wasn't willing to lower the price any further. I explained all this to her, and she didn't seem happy but didn't cancel the order either, so I went ahead with everything. 2 days ago, I finally went to the venue to deliver the cake. My assistant and I delivered the cake half an hour before everyone started arriving, and Rebecca seemed very impressed with my work and even told me she was happy with how the cake turned out and was reasonably nice to me, and I was happy about that. Usually, when I'm done with the delivery and ensure everything is in place, I leave because my work is done, but I just assumed I could stay because I was literally her sister and was family, so I wasn't going to treat this as a simple business deal. Besides, we had a good conversation while discussing the cakes and everything related to them over the days leading up to the event, and I thought we were on good terms for a while. But I guess that was a big mistake on my part because clearly that wasn't the case, and I felt absolutely humiliated later. My assistant left and went back to the shop, so I stayed a few minutes and some people started arriving. Rebecca had taken the cake and we had placed it on the table where she wanted it presented, so we were standing there, and just before she went off to welcome her guests, she turned to me and asked what I was waiting for. I was really confused, so I didn't say anything, and in the silence that followed, she told me she appreciated the cake but that I wasn't invited to the event and this was just a professional thing, so she would really appreciate it if I left because otherwise everyone would just be talking about the two of us and speculating on whether we were fixing our relationship or not. And this wasn't the time for any of that because the day was meant to celebrate her and her fiancé, so she didn't want me there. After that little speech, I felt so small and humiliated that I almost left, but then I saw my parents come in and didn't even notice that I was there. I don't blame them for that, but I don't know why it hurt so much. Probably because I felt that I had been asked to make that cake just so she could insult me and see my parents, making me feel like this was a deliberate attempt on her part to remind me that she didn't consider me family even though I did and had given her a discount and gone out of my way to make everything convenient for her. I felt terrible, so I decided to get back at Rebecca for insulting me that way. Here's where I might have gone overboard because I decided to make a speech at the event and it wasn't a nice speech. I grabbed the nearest wine glass and decided to get everyone's attention before making a little toast and letting people know exactly how I felt about her because I was so angry and wasn't thinking straight. I cleared my throat and announced that I had something to say, and then all eyes were on me, and most people were surprised to see me there because everyone knew about the relationship I had with Rebecca, but I wasn't going to be shy now and keep my mouth shut because I had finally had enough, and though I could see Rebecca silently telling me to shut up, I went ahead with my speech. I started by telling everyone how she and I used to be really close before she decided to be jealous and insecure of me one day and began to be a total jerk to me even though it wasn't my fault. Then, I narrated the whole incident that happened at Thanksgiving dinner 6 years ago and how she stopped talking to me over her boyfriend at the time, who didn't even talk to her anymore after a few months, but she just wanted a reason to hate me and served that up on a silver platter by being honest with her. I went on to talk about how she blocked me everywhere after I didn't attend her son's birthday party this year and even mentioned how some of the people present at that party were responsible for that because they always made sure to mention how she didn't order cakes from me because of our tense relationship. At least those people had the decency to look ashamed at that point. Then, I went on to tell people how she reached out to me a couple of days ago and how I went out of my way to arrange everything for her, and despite that, she told me I wasn't invited to her engagement party, and worst of all, she hadn't even paid for the cake, and still, I was okay with that. I told people I wasn't invited to the party because usually, I don't accept orders from customers who don't pay in advance. Then I called her a bunch of names I had been holding back for literally years, and I stormed out of the place and drove back to my shop. I was furious at how things had unfolded that day and didn't want to talk to anyone, so I turned off my phone and tried to calm down because I hated everyone at that moment. It wasn't until later that night that I decided to finally check my phone because I had calmed down and felt ready to talk to people. I expected my parents to reach out to me for obvious reasons, but I didn't think they would side with Rebecca on this, maybe my mother, but definitely not my father. I was very surprised to find that both of them believed what I did was completely unprofessional and unjustified and that I needed to apologize to her publicly because I totally ruined her party, and it was really unfair to air our dirty laundry like that in front of everyone because it wasn't just family, but also some of her friends and colleagues present. I genuinely thought both of them were being completely unreasonable and decided to call them to talk to them. I guess I was still pretty upset over everything that happened that day, so the second they picked up the call, I started yelling at them and told them there was no way on earth I was going to apologize to Rebecca because what she did was humiliating and she had no right to treat me like that. They told me they could understand where I was coming from, but even if I felt humiliated, that didn't excuse what I did because the way she insulted me was wrong, but at least it wasn't as public, and what I did to her was pretty public and made us all look bad. My dad told me that I should have at least waited until the event was over to confront her, and at that point, whatever I said, they would have supported me, but they couldn't support this and thought it was necessary for me to issue a public apology because what I did was just not right. I disagreed with that, so I fought with my dad too, and now no one in the family is talking to me anymore. It has gotten to the point where I am forced to consider that maybe I did something wrong and my actions weren't justified. I've also been thinking about this from a professional capacity, and maybe it was a bad look for me because clearly she only wanted it to be a purely commercial deal, but I did my best to treat her as family. I guess I should have known she just wanted my professional services and treated her like any other customer instead of going beyond. I feel like I've been played for a fool, and even making that little, stupid toast didn't make me feel better, and I think it has worsened my relationship with my parents because now even they don't want to talk to me unless I apologize to Rebecca. I feel like this whole experience has been a total loss for me, and I don't even know how to deal with this or how to proceed now because, even though I don't care about never talking to Rebecca again, I don't want that to be the case with my parents because I really love them and definitely want to stay in touch with them. Do you think I should apologize to Rebecca and just get this over with? Update 1. A couple of days ago, I decided I would apologize to Rebecca because I just wanted this to be over with. Honestly, I don't even care if she deserved that apology or not, but I just wanted to end this and get back on good terms with my parents at least. So, I had made a decision and was going to apologize to her. It had been 5 days since everything happened at the party, and my parents hadn't spoken to me in those 5 days, but on the day I was going to apologize, my dad reached out to me and said he was sorry for reacting the way he did that day. He told me he was apologizing for the way both my mom and he talked to me after the party that day because they hadn't even thought about how I must have felt, and they kept mentioning how I had ruined the party and how my behavior had left a bad impression on the people who had been invited. But then they really thought about it and realized I wasn't the kind of person who would lose her temper over just anything and everything. It must have taken a lot for me to feel that way and react the way I did. They weren't saying my behavior was necessarily acceptable all of a sudden, but they were apologizing for invalidating my feelings just because they thought it was more important to be perceived as a happy and healthy family rather than actually trying to be one. So now they wanted to talk to me and really get to the bottom of how I had been feeling and why I did what I did that day. None of us had really been listening to each other, and that's why there were so many misunderstandings, and we ended up not talking to each other for 5 days. They told me they had already talked to Rebecca, and she was going to pay me the money in a couple of days. They had heard her side of the story, but now they wanted to hear mine. So, I told them I felt really bad for treating her like family and making so many concessions for her, and she knew that, but even that wasn't enough for her to treat me with basic human decency. I felt used and betrayed when she told me I wasn't invited and wanted me to leave, so I had such a strong reaction. I regretted my outburst, but it had been a long time coming and I didn't think I owed her an apology. My parents told me they could understand how I felt and didn't think it was their place to forgive me, but it wasn't their place to hold a grudge either because this was between Rebecca and me, and they thought we could sort it out on our own if we wanted to. I honestly respect that. At least now, things are clear between my parents and me. As for Rebecca, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just hope she pays me the money she owes me. Update 2. It has been a week and a half since her engagement party, and today I finally got paid, but I only received $57.14. She said she deducted what she thought was necessary due to my behavior at the party and didn't think I deserved the full amount after what I did. I guess I can respect that because if I were in her place, I would have probably done the same thing too. I don't want to talk to her again or have any interaction with her because I'm fed up and want to move past this as soon as possible. There will be more clients in the future, and I can always make up the money, but I can't make up for my mental health and the time I'll lose trying to talk to her and make her see reason, so I think we're all better off not getting involved. My parents and I are back to normal, and it's like that little issue never happened, so that's great. Update 3. Rebecca got married a couple of days ago, and obviously, I wasn't invited, but that's okay because I don't think I wanted to be a part of anything that included her, and I think we can say the same about her when it comes to me. My parents attended, and I know they had a good time, but they didn't talk to me about it, and I really appreciate that. Even my mom, who had a very hard time understanding at first that my sister and I no longer got along, respected the fact that she and I don't want to talk to each other or hear about each other, and I think now it's a fact that we don't get along. We're back to ignoring each other at family events, and I think that's for the best in the long run. I wish her a lot of happiness and success in her new life, and I hope someday we can reconcile, but honestly, I don't care if that doesn't happen. My business is doing well and I'm happy. My parents and I have a good relationship and I have a sister. She just isn't my biological sister, and I'm actually talking about Lana, who has been there for me during the past few days as well. I have great friends and co-workers. I couldn't ask for more.